Taylor, he's going to face a defense in Oklahoma in which, outside of the Oklahoma State game in particular, I will throw Iowa State in there, and then the peculiar game against Baylor where they barely eked out a win with a late touchdown, giving up 41 points. Those three games, the defense was pretty shredded and didn't look good in a competitive game. Now, there's been some other games like last week. They gave up 31 points. They had a huge lead. I don't really count those type of efforts because who knows where the defensive mindset is, and you're giving up garbage points and garbage yards. But the defense has generally been better maybe than what we perceive Oklahoma defense to be. Okoronkwo has been amazing with 17 tackles for loss. Your assessment of this Oklahoma defense as they face TCU on offense, an offense that wants to be very balanced.
Right. You know, the best friend that the Oklahoma defense has is the Oklahoma offense, and that it gives them a lot of leeway and a lot of wiggle room to play a little bit looser. You know, they are confident that Mayfield-led offense is going to be able to get at least 35 points every game. And so it allows the defense to kind of play a little bit willing to kind of take some gambles, you know, bring heavy blitzes and put their young secondary in, you know, one-on-one situations. Because if they give up a touchdown, well, Mayfield's probably going to go out and score again anyway. So that they're able to play a little bit looser, which I think plays into their advantage, that they don't feel the stress and the pressure of saying, if we don't make this stop, we don't know if our offense is going to get us enough points. I really think the thing that's been really interesting to see is the secondary has dealt with a lot of injuries. They had to deal with some targeting suspensions in a couple games, and a lot of their younger secondary guys have started to having to get playing time. A couple freshmen that have really played well in the time that they've seen are guys like Trey Norwood, Trey Brown, and Robert Barnes at safety. Have those three guys have played very well as true freshmen in that secondary. And so depending on how those guys play could dictate a lot of how their defense performs.
Taylor Midkiff joining us from the Land Grant Gauntlet. You can join him and the rest of the staff there, Chris Ross and company, for Big 12 football coverage as we zero in on the first Big 12 championship game since I can't even remember. I don't know when they stopped that series off the top of my head, like 2009, 2010, something in that range. Do you remember, Taylor?
2010, I believe, maybe. Right.
Yeah, because the next year would have been the Oklahoma State debacle against Iowa State when they could have made the national championship game and probably should have, and didn't have that Big 12 championship game to lean on, I believe. So we've got TCU and Oklahoma. So the conference going to showcase its best two teams. And as we've discussed on here many times, it's been proven throughout the season. You don't have to look at the schedule and see who has the advantage in the Big 12 because everybody plays everybody. And so we've got a rematch, Oklahoma TCU, in the championship game. Your thoughts about the TCU defense seems to be much more consistent than Oklahoma. But again, in drawing from what you just talked about in regards to the mindset, they know that they need to be a little bit more razor sharp because the offense is good, but maybe not as explosive. And they've had some of those grinded out games with the likes of Iowa State.
Right. And the thing that's going to be really interesting to see, because I talked about this, I believe, when I wrote about this game a couple weeks back, this TCU defense is one of the best that Gary Patterson has had in a long time. It is so efficient. They put you in really bad situations. They have great edge rushers. They have quality players, basically every level of the defense. The one area, and this is not uncommon with Gary Patterson defenses, is they give up the big play. They are very susceptible to big plays because that's kind of the nature of the defense. It's kind of, you know, you hear often about a bend but don't break. This is kind of the rare, you know, break but don't bend. It will, if you're not getting big plays against TCU, you're usually not moving the ball. So that's going to be really interesting because Oklahoma has the most explosive offense in the country by almost any metric that you look at. They get chunks of yards consistently, and we saw that in the first time that these teams played. Rodney Anderson, Baker Mayfield to Marquise Brown. I mean, it was big play after big play in that first half. And so that's going to be the thing to watch. If TCU's defense can limit big plays, if they can force OU into longer drives, that's going to give them the best chance to succeed. But they're just not going to be able to win a game where they're in a track meet with Oklahoma.
And for those people out there that stereotype the Big 12 in a certain way, and I'll raise my hand right there because it's certainly been warranted in the past as a passing league, flag football, nobody tackles, nobody prevents anything from reaching the end zone. Kind of compromised that argument this year. If you look at TCU, they've got 2 games on the docket, actually 3 games in which they gave up 30-plus points. So Oklahoma was the only one that they really got gashed consistently where it mattered, losing that game 38-20. If you look at the Oklahoma State game and the SMU game, they won those games by double digits. So again, some of that was garbage points, especially against SMU and giving up a 36 spot and winning by 20. Oklahoma State is going to score on just about everyone, even though the offense is disappointed to a certain extent in a few big games this year. So TCU is bringing defense to this conference, and has, of course, when they've been successful. They had the one down year in 2016, but if you look the 2 years prior, they certainly were playing top-notch defense on a national basis there at TCU.